Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's not monsters, we're cultural disruptors. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks!
Patrons get those perks.
Jazz hands.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he's the biggest thing to happen in Missouri since whatever it is that's happened in Missouri. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, I've put on a few pounds, but I mean,
not that kind of biggest. And each week we'll chat about movies, television, whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week, a 1 and a 2, and he always knows what to do. It's Devon Taylor.
woo!
That was perfect. I was hoping that would be your intro for this. Thank you for having me back.
Dude, it is so good to see your face again and to have you back on the show. We've had you on since you moved to LA, but it's been, through the wonders of audio. And yeah, it's just been a while since we've kind of seen each other's beautiful faces while we're doing this thing. So it's glad to have you on the live show. If you don't know about Devon, if maybe it's your first time hearing him, he has been a Sif Pop staple for a while. He lives here in the area with us as or lived here in the area with us, another movie lover like us, film lover that we've had on the show. And he's moved out to LA. I guess maybe we should start there. Like, how is it pursuing the dream in, sunny but locked down Los Angeles,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that I've been in LA it's been 2 years, 2.25. And then it's like when I think about now, like, 3/4 of a year have been spent under lockdown. I'm just like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
My sense of time is kind of all over the place, but this past year, though, the first year is always a struggle. Like everybody says, that first year is going to suck. It's going to be real tough. And, they definitely aren't lying. And, so it was like, but then it was like weird that I like kind of started getting my bearings. And then this
everything shuts down.
Everything shuts down. And then it just became like a lot different. But then again, it was just like, I tried to just find the positive out of it. And I was just real bored, as everybody was for a little bit, and like not really knowing what to do. But then I was like, hey, this is what you wanted. You wanted more time, to yourself to be able to work on projects and stuff like that. Like that's what you wanted.
Sure.
Because I was working at a bar, and so that went down immediately.
Yeah.
And then we like reopened for like 2 weeks, but then we got shut back down because we didn't serve food. So the bar got closed down indefinitely. And then so I just kind of dove, straight into freelancing and trying to, freelance where I could. And I got in with a media production company. We do like
nice.
Music videos and live performances, and like now we're doing like live stream concerts because that's like the thing now, because we don't know when live music's gonna be a thing again.
Right.
So it was just just trying to make the adjustments I could, and then while also I was like, what, it's time for me to start my own podcast again. And the last time I was on the show was like the week before I launched the Blade Blunt Cinema Club.
Nice. Well, we are excited. If you haven't checked it out, it is the podcast is called the Bloody Blunts Cinema Club, and so you can check that out wherever podcasts are sold, wherever your local podcasts are sold. You know, the dream, Devon, I'm guessing, is to be on a set where you can get yelled at by Tom Cruise. I think that's the dream at this point, right? Is to eventually work your way up to getting yelled at by Mr. Cruise.
100%. Like that is I mean, I haven't been able to check back in on this person, but I had a bar regular that was a grip on the Top Gun movie, so he got to work with Tom Cruise. So I'm wondering if he got to like work on whatever project this is that
I think it's the new
whatever
Mission
this
Impossible.
incident happened.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
Mission
was
Impossible.
So I wonder, because I remember because he got to do the Top Gun movie, and then he said he was possibly gonna do like, because he said like him and Tom were like real cool. So I haven't gotten to check in on this situation, but I'll use my LA super sleuth powers, and we'll
let him know
it
if he
out.
is working with Tom, he better shape up, because if he doesn't, he's gone. You're gone, and you're gone, and you're all gone. All right, just wanted to get
You're
that
gonna
out
give him
there.
what he wants.
That's right. That's right. Well, we are excited to have you on the show again. We're going to have a great time talking movies, which we like to do, doing a best ever challenge, doing some buried treasure. We're going to look at a couple Netflix offerings that came out recently. One came out this week. That's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and then as well as The Prom also came out, new musical on Netflix. So we're going to take a look at both of those today and kind of go over those. In fact, let's just get right into it. Let's talk about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Tensions and temperatures rise over the course of an afternoon recording session in 1920 Chicago as a band of musicians await trailblazing performer, the legendary mother of the blues, Ma Rainey. Late to the session, the fearless, fiery Ma engages in a battle of wills with her white manager and producer over control of her music. We've got Viola Davis as Ma Rainey. We've got Chadwick Boseman, I believe in his final role as Levy in this. Coleman Domingo is another one worth mentioning. I've seen him pop up a lot in some different things in here as well. And Netflix once again saying, hey, when it comes to award season, we're just going to throw it all out there, man. And here's another one looking for some attention and looking for some awards. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Let's start it off with you, Devon. Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I mean, won't say dislike. I guess it was okay.
Okay.
But
All right.
I'm kind of leaning towards dislike.
All right. I'm excited to hear why. I can't wait to get into this discussion.
Yeah. I'll give it a minute to breathe.
Andrew, what about you? You like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I'm on the high side of loved it.
Ooh.
It might be my second favorite movie of the year.
Okay. All right. I'm liking it. We got a little tension here building. I think we're going to be in a good place. I'm going to play mediator between the two of you. I'm firmly in the liked it. I really like this movie. I do think I have some issues with it. But I think the positives for me are enough to outweigh the negatives that I had with the film. I'm trying to think of where we want to start. We usually start with the positive, don't we, Andrew? So we should let you go first. Like, tell us, since you loved this so much. By the way, people are probably wondering what's the movie you still have above it. Do you mind sharing that, or do you want to keep that a secret?
Actually, it was a movie that was lower down on my list, but I went back and I rewatched it, and it went all the way up to number one, and that's Trial of Chicago 7.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is just below Trial of Chicago 7. So tell us what you loved about it.
First off, you know that I am a avid fan of good performances.
Yes.
And this movie is a master class in how to own a performance and make a character come real by multiple people. I think that Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman and even Coleman Domingo are giving Oscar, if not Oscar nomination worthy performances here. I think that Viola Davis is unrecognizable. She truly transforms into Ma Rainey. It's ungodly ungodly good at how amazing she is. And Chadwick Boseman just has this ability to, whenever he's talking, you focus in and you just want to know so much about this character. There's this one scene in particular where he's giving his, I guess you could say, his monologue, of why he is or why he does what he does. And the entire time I'm watching it, part of me is going, I am so disheartened and sad that we lost him. But at the same time, I am so happy and that we were blessed with him, to see him get that he had the ability to give performances like this. Yes, he's always going to be remembered as Black Panther, but hopefully with movies like this makes people who only knew him as Black Panther, if they see this, they'll go, oh, if he's this good, I got to go back and I got to see the rest of his his catalog, like whenever he did James Brown, or even earlier this year he did Defy Bloods, which I also really, really loved. If there's going to be a movie that he's going to get nominated for this year, it's going to be this one. I think that he's more as a plot point in Defy Bloods as opposed to an actual character. Whereas here, I think he's a super fleshed out character with motives. And it's funny because this movie's called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but I would actually say that the main character in this is Levy. I wouldn't say that it's Ma. I think it's him.
I mean, I think they both are, and I think you see it reflected on the poster, where they're both on the poster. And in fact, I think they are both different aspects of what I believe the movie is trying to, point out about racial issues from that era. And so it's interesting to see. We'll focus on the performances because I think that's where you focused kind of in your first explanation of why you love this.
Yeah, that's my main love for this movie.
I'm completely with you on Chadwick. I was absolutely enthralled with him. Now, this movie is a movie that is like, it definitely wants to give the actors the stake. Like there are Oscar reel, moments built into this for these actors. It's like chew on this, do this thing, and Chadwick pulls it off. I wasn't as sold with, unfortunately, with Viola a couple times. I love her so much, and I think she's so talented, and she gives her all to this performance. There were just a couple times, for whatever reason, where it just seemed like a little bit much for me. It didn't bring it down overall. But I did appreciate that performance. Why don't you jump in there, Devon, like with some thoughts on the performance and then kind of some of your other thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thoughts on the movie is kind of touching on, some of what you said is like, yeah, this is the built-in, hey, we're going to get some people some award nominations type movie. But at the same time, like, I don't like that's why it was it feels like that's the only reason why, because like I didn't know that this was adapted from a stage play, and then I immediately like felt it like within the first 10 minutes in the movie. I knew it was kind of gonna be like a Fences situation.
Yes,
but
yeah,
it's
yes,
but I just didn't feel like the story, the stage play itself, like just lent itself to needing to be in a cinematic format. I feel like it literally was just kind of a series of setups for, these big scenes. Okay, whose turn is it to have a scene now? Whose turn is it to have a monologue now? And like, yeah, the acting is great. I love Chadwick Boseman. I thought this was definitely a great swan song for him. And got to show off,
You're good.
Sorry, I have a fire alarm in my apartment.
Do you need to go?
Just went off.
No, hey, listen,
it just went off.
We are fully willing to pause a live show for you to get out of a burning building. Okay, so let's just be very clear. The show must go on. It only goes to a certain point.
No, I'll get the status report, but there's no fire going on.
Okay. Fair enough.
Apologies. But yeah, I think this was a great swan song for Chadwick to have. Like, you know, we got to see the layers, you know, his charisma. We got to see some anger. We got to see all the stuff. Like, we got to see the full range of it. And funny, yeah, the Five Bloods was the last episode that I was on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we definitely gets, you know, a more heavy feature here. And Viola Davis is also great as Ma Rainey. Like, I was sold on the performance. I didn't think it was too much, or not because it was her fault, but I mean more of like kind of the writing of it. Like, I don't know, like the way that everybody talked in third person kind of started to bother me. And like, I don't know, I think there's just like kind of written narrative choices that I just wasn't really sold on from like any you know, other than from the acting. And then I just like also felt like the production was just, it was kind of flat. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was just enough to get by, to where it's like, okay, hey, award show, don't look at the technical stuff. That's not what we're here for. We're here for some acting. And like, and it's, yeah, like, cool, I guess. I don't know.
No. I totally hear what you're saying, and I think you're dead on when you say that probably the issues I may have had occasionally, and again, it was just occasionally with Viola Davis, were issues based on the context of the performance, things like how it was written, how it was staged, all those kind of things. And I think you bring up Fences is such a perfect correlation for what we're talking about here, because my main thing with Fences is what you're talking about, is the idea that this didn't show its reason to be a movie, right? Like, it didn't, it really is, you know, I think of Hamilton, right? We saw Hamilton's filmed version of the stage musical this year, and it was amazing. And they did a few cool things with camera angles and filming it from different, you know, ways, but it was the stage presentation. And sometimes with movies like this, I think this movie can fall into this. And like you said, I think Fences falls into this as well. It just feels like, oh, so you basically just build more realistic looking sets and then everybody does the play. And that can feel a little bit contextually cheapened, even as there's so much to chew on. And so I think I really feel kind of what you're saying, and I think a lot of my negatives kind of fall into that category. Now, one positive we haven't talked about that I do want to bring out, because again, I am so... I had I can't remember who it was. I had somebody recently ask me if I had noticed an uptick in movies about racial issues, persons of color, all those kind of things. And I'm so glad at the different representation and the perspectives that we're getting. And there were some things in this movie, especially some of the Chadwick Boseman stuff, that just absolutely destroyed me with authenticity and truth, especially in dealing with racial things we need to understand and start thinking about, in history that we need to understand. And you know, this movie is making a very this play that is now a movie is making a very specific point about what cultural appropriation really is, what it looks like, who has the power, where that power comes from, how is that power taken back. All of those things are addressed here. And you know, I guess this is kind of a spoiler-ish thing, but I don't think it's a huge one. But the movie finishes with a really depressing moment of appropriation, right? And just, you know, kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is the point you're making. The point you're making is that the trauma and the pain that we saw never makes it to the surface in that era. And now I think finally a lot of that pain is starting to make it to the surface and educate so many of us who hadn't felt that or seen that. And so for that reason alone, this movie bumps up a couple notches for me, just because I think it handles that stuff fairly well. Now, I'm a white guy, so I haven't lived it. I don't know it. But that is, for me, at least the educational part of it was, you know, a huge thing for me. So I wanted to bring that up as well.
Nice.
I mean,
yeah, I'm a white guy too, so ditto.
So maybe we should let Devon talk.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, this would definitely be an interesting, you know, kind of perception thing. Is, you know, that I'm glad that, you know, that the movie could do that, you know, in a way. But for me, I guess, like, whenever I see it and hearing the things that they're talking about and the way that they're being presented in the movie just doesn't, like, 'cause it's like, okay, like, I hear the message, like, that they're delivering because of the monologue that they're delivering, so they're kind of telling you. But
Mm-hmm.
that's why, like, it kind of bothers me, like, that the movie does does like the bare minimum to deliver the message in a cinematic fashion. Because again, like, if you're gonna do this and you're gonna make a message and you're gonna have it in a movie, then you need to present it better. And I feel like, I mean, because, like, they would, some of these big moments would kind of come out of nowhere. Like, you know, the conversation would be on one thing, and then all of a sudden, you know, like, you know, when Levy kind of has his, you know, first powerful moment of, like, you know, of his backstory, you know, that moment kind of comes at, like, such a very odd moment in the film, in the pacing wise. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of like, you know, it's put out there and then we move on to something else. And then, and just also, I don't know, it comes off very thin, because it's like, these are issues that, like, you know, that I understand a little bit more, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And then that's kind of where it's like, you know, maybe that's because this is a Netflix movie that's gonna be, like, kind of, you know, seen by a lot of people, so it's gonna be, you know, a little bit more accessible. But I feel like that just kind of also does a disservice to the stories and themes that's trying to present, that they kind of put it in this sanitized form, and, like, also not really care about the way that they're developing the message. They're just saying, hey, we have the message here, we're going to throw it out. But they didn't put more effort into the way that they worked it into the narrative, or into the pacing of the film.
Where do you think that starts, Devon? Where do you think they should have, if they were going to adapt this stage play, which that, you know, that was the goal, and kind of keep the structure of it and the message of it, how do they make it a better cinematic experience? Does it start with kind of throwing away a lot of the plot structure and developing a new plot structure? Because I'm not sure how you keep this plot structure and still expand it. You know what I mean? Like, it's very much about that day, that recording session. So do you just make it about more? Like, what do you think? How would you change it?
No, I think the story is just fine. The story itself, like, works. Like, I love movies that are contained in, like, a singular location, and, like, they can work. But, like, the kinetic energy just, like, kind of wasn't there, or there just also wasn't, like, a visual personality. Like, the person that directed this film is primarily a stage director person. Like, he's not even a big movie person. So it's like, you can kind of tell that, like, he just presented it as a play, as they would, you know. But, like, you know, bring a director that has, you know, passion for the story, but also has, like, you know, a distinct storytelling voice. Like, I don't feel like there is a creative director behind this, that, like, you know, like, I don't hear a voice through it. I just hear the stage play. I just see the stage play. You know, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
like, Fences, it felt a little bit more like cinematic, because it felt more rooted to these people, and you were kind of in their home, and it was more intimate in a way that we kind of were invested a little bit more in those characters. I feel like that's kind of also, I don't know, like, the again, like, I didn't feel the characters backstories, like, they weren't as authentic to me, because they were just kind of presented in a very, like, matter of fact fashion. I don't know,
Okay.
like, it just,
Yeah,
it
I understand
never
what you're
it
saying. I
never
hear what you're saying.
gelled for me.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think we all stated kind of where we land on it in a good way. You know, I think I understand, Andrew, why you love it, and Devon, I understand, you know, kind of why it felt very surface to you. I see, and I'm kind of right in the middle, agreeing with both of you in some ways. and just so I kind of land in more in the middle of it. Anything else we want to talk about? I guess I'll say this while you guys are thinking if there's anything else you want to mention. I did want to give a shout out to the other guys in the band, Glenn Terminus Toledo and Michael Potts' Slow Drag. I thought the chemistry between that group of men was really good. It was just believable to me. I believed them as a band that had been working together and doing this, the looks they gave each other. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah. Actually, funny enough, going back to Defy Bloods, whenever we did that initial review, I said that was a perfect way to immediately introduce characters and have instantaneous chemistry between them when they're all meeting in the airport for the first time. I think when the band all goes to, I guess it's the green room or the cellar, whatever you want to call it in this, I got the exact same feeling of like, I am getting to know these characters and I'm getting to see how they vibe with each other immediately, how they're all at the beginning, jabbing, at each other, all in good fun, just lighthearted, friendly stuff, they're making fun of, Levy with shoes and stuff like that, or talking about, how old is like taking his time and going slow with Toledo. But you get a sense of camaraderie with all these guys like instantaneously, and you just want to know more about them. And I think that that's something that I guess we also need to shout out August Wilson, who both wrote this and Fences. Mm-hmm. So the stage play. Maybe that's just, I guess they would take place right around the same time period, the early 30s, 40s era-ish. I'm not really sure the exact
I think
time
Fences
frame.
Is a little later. I could be wrong, but You can look it up. We can Google it. But,
yeah. But they're like a I guess you could say a window to a time that is just, he makes it feel so real with the plays and stuff. Like whenever I watched Fences for the first time, I'm like, this is so what I would imagine. There's an authenticity to it that you feel. You don't have to have lived through that time period to know that what you're watching just feels, and you just know in your heart that it's real. And I got the same feeling watching this as well. So I guess I just love August Wilson, and I got to go check out more of his plays.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I love Fences and I love this. So,
what about you, Devon? Any other final thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. I felt like I got a little negative there, but it's not like, I won't say it's a bad film. Like, this is not a bad film. It is a very watchable film, and and that's gonna work for kind of interesting, this weird Netflix brand of an Oscar bait movie, because we have Oscar bait movies when a small indie film makes it, but now we have Netflix kind of making these, because again, it's very watchable. It has big themes that are a little bit more digestible, and and great performances across the board. I mean, I love Coleman Domingo. I want him to be in every film. He was great in Euphoria.
So good.
He's great in Euphoria. If you guys haven't watched that,
no, not yet.
But yeah, I was here for the performances. I just wish there was a way to make it, I don't know, more of a movie. I don't know.
No, I hear what you're saying. Coleman Domingo, you mentioned Euphoria, which I have watched, and I don't know. Have you seen the movie that they just did? Like I forget. It was just him.
Their Christmas special. No.
Yeah. Did you see that?
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, he gives like a masterclass in acting in that. It's basically an hour-long therapy session between the two of them, and it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, really. Speaking of kind of stage play but it is super compelling. I think you would enjoy that quite a bit. So, make sure you check that out.
Oh yeah.
Well, there you go. I think it's a recommend, if for no other reason that if you love movies and you already have Netflix, it's definitely part of the conversation and something you're going to want to check out. And again, even just solely for the performances, it's, I think, worth watching. So be a recommend from me. You guys, what do you think?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd recommend it. The music. I also forgot about the music. The music is really good in this. I think that the musical performances were all pretty good. Like, this isn't a full-blown musical like the next one we're talking, but I love pseudo-musicals as well. And I mean, the music performances were solid, so it's worth it for that and the performances.
Look at Devon setting up the segue like a king, like a master, going on to a musical. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about The Prom. Down on their luck, Broadway stars shake up a small Indiana town as they rally behind a teen who wants to go to the prom with her girlfriend. This is Nicole Kidman, James Corden, Meryl Streep. And as soon as you say Meryl Streep, you know that you have to talk about Oscars just because apparently that's all it takes is her name and you're in the Oscar conversation. This also comes to us from Netflix. And really, even with those big names in it, comes down to the performances of Ariana DeBose and Joe Ellen Pellman. And so let's talk a little bit about it. Guys, what do you think? Andrew, we'll start with you this time. Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I can't give you just a simple answer without context.
That's
the
fine.
first 20 minutes of this movie, I was so sure. I've never been more sure in my life that I was going to hate a movie as much as I hated this one. But I'll tell you, by the end of this movie, I was crying. I think I'm going to land on I liked it. Solid liked it. Like, not really liked it, not just meh. I like this movie.
You know what? I'll go next because that experience is, I mean, so similar to mine that I could pretty much just say ditto. It took me about, I think I will say it took me about 10 minutes before I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. And something started to click with me where I was just like, yeah, I think I can give myself to this and have a fun time with this and know that it's ridiculous, know what it's doing, and have fun with it. And by the end, yeah, I liked it. I was so sure at the beginning that I wasn't going to enjoy it. And by the end, I'm like, you know what? I like musicals, and this is about as musical as it gets. This is about as Broadway as you can make something.
And I hate musicals, you know that. So
yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So I ended up liking it as well. What about you, Devon?
Sif Pop audience, if this is your first episode you listen to with me on it,
oh no,
go back to the other ones. I'm typically an optimist. I'm typically a positive guy. But I had like literally the opposite experience. I was like the first little like bit of it, I was like, hey, this is all right, I guess. Like, it's whatever. Like, I don't love it, but it's okay. And then it just got so much worse for me. And so I'll still say it's okay, but I also kind of disliked it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it
was
sounds like you didn't like it, which is fine.
But it was entertaining.
And
but
look,
it was entertaining still. I won't say I won't say I didn't chuckle a lot, but
good to know. Good to know. And I will say you are in the majority here, from my understanding. Once I've watched something and kind of processed my own thoughts on it, done my review, those kind of things, I'll go and check out other people. And yeah, this is not doing well. Critics in general are not giving this good scores. So you, I think, are in the majority on this one. I am surprised, especially knowing how Andrew feels about musicals, that I'm not the one having to fight for the good points of. I'm not alone having to fight for some of the good points of this. But yeah.
I also want to make it clear I do have issues with this movie, obviously, but I just want to, because I was coming off the hype train of Ma Rainey, coming to this where I really didn't have anything bad to say about that movie. This one, I got issues, people. So you'll get to hear me. Talk
issues.
About that.
Well, I'll start us off on this one. I think I probably liked it the most. I'm not sure I liked it more than Andrew, but it feels like maybe a little bit. I, as already mentioned, am a lover of musicals, especially that Broadway feel. If you can do a good Broadway style song, I just kind of give myself to it. There's just something so elevated about it that it hits my soul on a place that, regular storytelling just doesn't. And there's something about giving yourself to a musical that is a little bit abstract, because when you give yourself to a regular storytelling motion picture kind of thing, you are buying into the authenticity of the world. When you give yourself to a musical, especially a Broadway musical like this one, authenticity is not one of the keywords. This is not authentic. This is elevated. This is surreal. This is strange. This is dumb. This is, there are just elements of things that happened where you just can't turn on that part of your brain that's like, that doesn't make any sense, because you're in a Broadway musical. It's just, so there is an element of not turning your brain off, but adjusting the dial of your brain to be in a certain kind of mindset for what goes on here. Many movies are like that. Many genres have a little dial you kind of have to adjust, as far as being in them. This movie, what it does right, and the reason I come away liking it more than disliking it, is I think the tone is consistent. Now, it does deal with a very real and serious and authentic topic, and the idea of the rights of this girl to go to prom with her girlfriend, all that stuff is meant to be affecting, but it happens in a consistent tone of over-the-top ridiculousness, silliness. That I don't think short circuits it. At least it didn't for me in any way. So the gift of being able to be elevated like that and then still reach in and touch something important is not always easy, but I felt like this movie did it all right for me. So who wants to go next? Andrew, why don't you give us some thoughts next?
Well, leading off of what you just talked about, I have never really been one for Broadway, and that's not just for a musical standpoint, but you were talking about how everything is elevated and you have to kind of give yourself into and accept the ridiculousness of it to, kind of enjoy it. Not having that kind of switch that I can normally turn on and off for, entertainment like this, I did find it difficult, and I think that's why it took me longer in the beginning of the movie to finally give myself up to it, because I'll say it was like at least 30 minutes of this movie that felt like it was 9 hours, by the way. This movie is way too long. But
it's a fair point.
Honestly, there's so many songs, too many songs, way too many songs. This movie could have been half an hour shorter.
Not enough songs. More songs. Give me all the songs. I'm just kidding. No, you're right. There are too many songs.
But there are songs in this that I'm like, oh, that's a great song. There's actually a song in this movie that I feel pretty confidently is gonna at least get nominated for Best Original Song. It brought me to tears, and I'm like, oh, this is powerful. I'm loving this. But going back to the beginning, whenever you're getting introduced to these characters, and I'm like, yeah. Okay, first off, I don't think it's really a spoiler to talk about this. In the beginning, we're not supposed to really like these Broadway people.
No.
Yeah. And I think that it's odd that a movie / play would start off introducing you to the people you aren't really supposed to like, as opposed to landing you and like, okay, I really want this person. If it would have started off with I forget her name now, Joe Ellen Pellman. If it would have started off with her and as Emma and like getting to know her, I probably would have fallen into the accepting this movie a lot quicker. But since it started off with the Broadway people, I'm like, oh, I don't like these people. Why are we spending so much time with these people when they're getting to do musical numbers before I even get to care about what the movie's supposed to be about? And I feel like I'm nitpicking not only a movie but also a play because it's based off of a play.
Sure.
That I'm like, yeah, I think that the play could have done without this, not done without this group, but this whole side dynamic of why they're going to Indiana. If they would have cut that out completely, I don't think it would have affected the story much at all. So I don't think that their motivation, I guess, adds anything to the movie slash play other than to pad time for an already very, very long movie.
Devon, I want to
agree.
hear what you have to say, but I hard disagree to that. This may be the hardest any of us have disagreed on anything. I think that plot line is crucial to what is going on in this movie, at least the way I eventually saw it, which is to set up the different responses to this event from, I'm going to use a very dangerous phrase here, both sides. The idea that I'm sorry, I said it. But the idea that there is some negativity, some misunderstanding on the more, hey, we're going to go help side, like the meta nature of that is important to balance off the normal and understandable and proper amount of derision of the people who don't want this to happen. Because in many ways, Get Out kind of did the same thing much better, where it acknowledged the idea of it's not just about the overt people who are being overtly opposed to something. It's about the subtlety of the person who would vote for Obama a third time if they could. You know what I mean? Like there's
overcorrection.
Overcorrection is
not
a weird
not
word,
in this case, but I guess overcorrection is more apt in Get Out than this, but
right, yeah. But so I do think that's actually important to what's going on here. Otherwise, I think it can come off a little more pedantic. And I don't think this comes off pedantic at all. In fact, where I actually transitioned into really liking this was I thought one of the most beautiful and appropriate approaches to the idea of, I can't approve of homosexuality because of what the Bible says. And then the song, I think it was called Love Your Neighbor. Love Your Neighbor trumps them all, I think.
Hated that song so much.
It's so perfect, though, for that message, for understanding, what's going on there. And maybe I'm just coming at this from a different perspective. Maybe I'm just coming at this from the, perspective of understanding people, who need to hear that, who need to internalize that more instead of, just kind of being, this is how we think because we're in this camp, and this is how we think because we're in this camp. And I don't know. I just, that song was, I thought, really powerful. So I'm excited to hear why you hated it. But Devon, we haven't let you talk yet. So please tell us about your feelings.
I mean, this is all so interesting because it's like, I agree with all of us, but at the same time, this is so funny that we like have varying degrees of enjoying this because it's like so many of the reasons that you just mentioned are so many reasons I dislike it. Like this whole, I don't like the movie itself. Yes, one, way too long. Two, I love musicals. I'm a big musicals fan, actually. But the thing is, and it's like I am so here for like, again, like the elevation of it all, like, okay, but it's like, okay, this didn't even like get like go big enough. It didn't get weird enough. The thing with, if you're gonna make a movie of a musical, like the weirder the better. I did an entire month on specifically horror musicals for my podcast, and they're the best because they are the absolute weirdest. And this is like, okay, here we have it, but I was like, I think there could have been, it's not that there could have been more songs, it's just there could have been better songs. All the songs are just like kind of there. I literally just watched this movie like 90 minutes ago, like before we started, and I can't remember a single one of them except for like the sad one at the end. And it's like, if you're gonna tell this story and like kind of have this message behind it, like you can hit the both sides like kind of thing, but also have way less of these adults in the movie about a prom, about a story of a young, queer person having a moment, an identity issue. Why are we spending so much time with these adults? They could have been the side characters that you dislike, that they are the representation of toxic allyship, which is kind of what they're going for here.
Right.
And they could have had literally 30 minutes less of them because there is so much of them talking that I just do not care for. I mean, I worship at the antelope legs of Nicole Kidman, but I just could not take how much, but I cannot take how much these adults are in this movie about a prom. Like, give me more of the teen story, and then like, yes, give like the, you know, the accents of having these adults and the different ways that they're responding to the situation. But it's just all, yeah, it's too much. That 2 hour 10-minute runtime literally does feel like 6 hours. It's just, and the pacing is so, it's so wompy, and it kind of suffers from this thing that a lot of, or that I think a lot of like Broadway stage plays and musicals suffer from, is like they have they have a good first act, and then the second act is like usually the slump, because like in a show they're trying to give you all the goods in the first act, you know, keep you awake, and then they give you, and then they hit you with all the sappy stuff and all the boring stuff in the second act, and then all the themes and whatnot. And it's like they definitely kind of do that. They like front load this movie a little bit, and then it kind of dips, and then they get their second wind, and then the second wind, it like the first prom happens like so early, and then the I don't know, everything was just so wompy about this movie. Like, I love most of the cast, but it's wompy.
No, you're right. I hear you and disagree. I think, and that's okay. That's why we have these conversations. Andrew, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to tell him that I 1,000,000,000% agree with him on the fact that the movie focuses too much on the adults in this. As Devon said, the movie is about prom, and honestly, I think the most, entertaining and like emotional backbone of this movie is with Emma Nolan, our little the girl in this. I think that, first off, when you have a movie with Nicole Kidman and Meryl Streep in it, and you're being outacted by a newcomer, I think that Joe Ellen Pellman here is like the emotional heart of this movie. Everything that I ever felt in this movie that like would bring me to tears or make me smile or anything at all, it came from her. It wasn't the four main leads of this movie. I think that they should have made Andrew Reynolds, Nicole Kidman, James Corden, and Meryl Streep a more supporting, like in the background, like oh, hey, I'm going to pop in, like a fairy godmother sort of thing,
Yes,
exactly, as opposed to like, it's funny because Meryl Streep, her first song in this is "It's Not About Me," and then the entire rest of the movie feels like it's about her and the rest of the people.
But that's the point.
No, it's not.
Of that song. The whole point of that song is that she's an idiot for that. She's being disingenuous when she says that she's going to make it all about her.
But then, as a writer, I forget who wrote this, Bob Martin, and I don't know who the actual play is by. Oh, also Bob Martin. So yeah, you have a movie it's not about me, but ironically, it is all about her. He still doesn't have the sense to realize in his own play he's falling into his own plot point that
makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're writing a song ironically about "It's Not About Me," but then you mess up and you make the whole play about her.
It sounds like the one of the major parts that you're both having issue with, and I think I understand, is that you wanted more of kind of the school, the kids, the prom itself to be the focus of the story, not so much the topic and how that's dealt with, by adults. And that makes sense to me. I totally get that. That's a totally different movie. That is not this movie. That is not what this movie, wanted to be.
I wish I watched that movie.
But I think that is what this movie wanted to be. But then they also, I think they made their point by accident. In the movie, it's okay. It's these adults that are focusing on themselves and making the situation about themselves without focusing on what the actual situation is with these kids. But then that's what the movie also does too. The movie doesn't have to do that. You can still send that message, but then you correct it in the movie by still centering this story on the kids, on what's going on, instead of shoving it into the last 20 minutes of the movie when you had 2 hours and 15 minutes to do this. And then they literally
Bingo. That's it.
they gave her character all the stuff like at the very back end of the movie. We didn't need all the stuff from the adults to send that message. That's where you as the movie correct it. That's how you send your message. But then they still did that anyways by making the movie all about everything else around the situation besides the actual interesting, heartwarming story that should be there. And that's where the movie messes up.
The only way to know for sure is to, talk to the storyteller, or maybe look for some interviews and kind of why they wrote it. But it seemed to me that whoever wrote this when they did was not dealing with, we have to fix how this next generation sees these issues. In fact, this movie feels very much like the next generation's got it. Like the kids are going to be all right. Like that's what this movie seems to be saying to me, is like it's the issue that we need to address isn't with the kids who it's affecting. It's with the generation that's still in authority and controlling them, and how they understand and how they process and how they deal with it. I just think that's not. I just think the movie you guys wanted to see, which I agree may be a better movie. It absolutely might be a better movie, isn't the movie that they wanted to make. And maybe that's where we disagree the most, is you think they did want to make it and failed at it. But I look at the poster and the material, and it's got the adults on it. It's like, it's not about the kids, this movie. So I think that was intentional.
I think that's so strange to make that your intent if that's the message you're trying to make also. I don't know. I think it's...
because the message is directed at my generation. I think the message is directed at my generation. I don't think this is a movie for the next generation. I don't know. I think this is a movie for my generation, maybe the generation right after me, maybe millennials, like Gen X millennials. I think that's who this is for. Not the whatever I always forget the new generation, what the generation names always slip my brain. Yeah, the Gen Zers, so I agree that the stuff I loved the most were our primary Gen Z, actors. But at the same time, I don't think that's what the movie is about. Or certainly not what the movie is about. I don't think it's what the movie meant to be about.
You can still send that message to that generation, but through the voice of this younger generation. But yet I think they still told it through the generation who they're trying to speak to. They told it through their voice. I think the message would be received more if it's like, okay, you can still send that message to that generation, but tell it through this other way. But, I don't know.
No, I appreciate the perspective. I think it's really interesting to think about, and yeah, I'm obviously in the minority on this, so that's fine. But
interesting that it's from Ryan Murphy that he directed this. I feel like it's a very interesting cog in all of this, because he
and I think that perspective actually makes sense from Ryan Murphy, as he is in an older generation. That he is trying to address his peers. Makes a little sense to me, producing it this way. I don't know. That intent is certainly not something I completely know, but I definitely hear what you guys are saying.
I'll tell you what's really funny is that everything that Aaron and I have been saying, we've been disagreeing on, yet we both came out the end of this saying that we liked it. I think that it's interesting that I'm not saying that we cherry picked the things that we liked, but the things that hit us emotionally, I guess, really did affect us emotionally. And that can really overshadow, even if that's your one positive. I'm not saying it is, but if that's your one positive, it can overshadow multiple negatives. And you can still come out going, this affected me on an emotional level. There's a lot of problems with it, but you know what? I'm going to give it some grace and say that I like this, because in the end, that's what movies are supposed to do. They're supposed to make you feel something or think, and be thought-provoking. And at the end, for all of its faults, this movie did its job for me. So
that's good to say. What did you guys think of Corden in this?
Overactor.
I was with you until his scene. He has this, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you can do this.
That was actually the scene that I decided he was an overactor.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I like that scene, but it was like kind of like the same issue I had with Ma Rainey. That scene, like the way that where it came from and like how it got there,
Sure.
and then that scene being there, it just like kind of felt funny. But it was a good. I mean, I think he was, um, him and Keegan Michael Key were probably the strongest of the adults, I would say, as far as performances go.
Okay. What I'm sensing, Devon, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's an appropriate amount of cynicism in how we approach these acting performances come awards time, because there is definitely a paint by numbers. Here's the playbook way you get nominated for an acting award. Here's your big scene, and here's how you put it together. And what your cynicism is allowing you to do, and sometimes that can feel like a negative word. I don't mean it that way, but it allows you to go, okay, but did this come from an actual place, or is it just a bunch of words you put on the screen to have a big moment? And that's what I'm hearing from you, and I think that's really valid. I think that's a very valid way to kind of look at these bravura performances. Is okay, I get it. You've got great words to say, and you can say them in authentic and amazing ways. But how did the character get here, and what does it mean to the story? And make it a piece of a bigger puzzle. That's what I hear you saying.
That is 100% what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
I mean, I love a big scene as much as the next guy. Like, chew that scenery up, chew it up. I love it. Like, but like, yeah, it needs to like feel organic getting there and having a reason and motivation behind it, other than, like you said, like it being just like, this is a grandiose moment. Okay, whose turn is it to step up to the podium? Like it didn't, just like come in, more
Right.
naturally. And I feel like those moments should just be ingrained in a movie. They should just like be ingrained and feel organic in the movie, rather than being like, oh hey, like we shouldn't know that we're watching the Oscar scene when we're watching it,
Right.
It should be after you get done watching the movie and you're thinking about it and you go, that one scene, like that's the one. But like when you're watching, you shouldn't be able to point out like, oh hey, this is the one, like this is the one they're gonna submit to the Academy for their consideration.
It's a tough balance to find, because we are conditioned for it now. And so part of that is in our own conditioning. And so, yeah, that's an interesting thing. Well, I've enjoyed that conversation. You guys have anything else you want to mention about the prom before we kind of go into talking about some more Viola Davis performances?
No,
We good?
not really. No
Okay.
post-credit scene. Well, there's a
It's good to know.
mid-credit scene, but it's a continuation. It doesn't really add anything.
There you go. That's a prom.
Yeah.
It is on Netflix. I would recommend it if you love musicals. If you don't, I wouldn't. And that's kind of where I land. Andrew, what about you? Who would you recommend it to? Anybody?
I don't know, because, like I said, for me personally, if it was me and I wasn't watching this movie for the show. First off, I probably wouldn't have watched it anyway. But B, if I had started watching it, I would have probably quit watching it before it got good. So if you're willing to sit through what I would consider the rough start, I think that there's a payoff in this. So I guess, I would recommend it.
Okay.
It's weird for me to say that.
I wouldn't. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot better things you can be watching with your 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I think it's completely
if you're asking
fair.
me, especially from somebody that does like musicals, I think there's a lot more better musicals you could be watching. If you really wanna, it's there. But
Yeah. What I hear Devon saying is cancel your Netflix immediately. There's nothing good there. Everything stinks. I think that's basically the message of today.
That's what I'm picking up.
it's not in the horror section.
That's right. All right. Before we get into the best ever challenge, just a reminder, we are so thankful for our SIF Pop members. Thank you for sending a few bucks our way every month. Helps us continue to do this. Helps us feel like there's value in what we do. And we appreciate you, if nothing else, watching, listening, and telling your friends about it. But the fact that you would go to that next step and become a member at Patreon is just amazing. We try to give you some pretty cool thank you gifts for doing that. You can check those out at patreon.com/siftpop. One of those is a weekly bonus episode that we do for you. And this week, Andrew and I are going to be talking about Mandalorian Season 2. So with spoilers, by the way. So just so you know ahead of time that the bonus podcast for this week will include some spoilers for Mandalorian Season 2. But yeah, our members get access to all those bonus podcasts in your own podcast feed. You can check out that and all the other fun stuff at patreon.com/siftpop. All right, let's move on to our best ever challenge. We're going to do Viola Davis movies, best ever movies that Viola Davis has been in. So not necessarily Viola Davis performances, but the best movies that she has been in. We will go from number 5 to number 1. And if we have something higher on our list than somebody else who mentions it, we will trump it and talk about it when it's the turn for the person who has it the highest. We'll start at number 5. Devon, why don't you kick us off? What's your number 5 Viola Davis movie?
Let me pull up my list. One of you guys go first, if you could.
Andrew, why don't you kick us off? What's your number 5?
Well, I'm going to get Trump for this. So, Out of Sight.
Yes, Trump. I will trump Out of Sight. We'll get there eventually.
I watched it for the first time, or not first time, but to actually remember what the movie was.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Good. Well, we'll talk about it here in a bit. Quite a long bit, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start my number 5 with Disturbia, which Viola Davis
like that
was
in.
in. It's good, right?
It's like a good movie.
It shouldn't be good. It's just a modern retelling of Rear Window, right? Like there's, it's just basically someone's like, what if you made Rear Window with a teenager and added some stuff? And it really shouldn't be as good as it is, but it's very compelling.
Yeah, it's a combination between Rear Window and a kids movie that I watched growing up called Clubhouse Detectives. Like, those like made for kid movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact plot of this. A kid sees his neighbor murder a woman, and him and his friends have to try and get evidence to prove that he's a murderer. It's the exact same plot. This is back whenever Shia LaBeouf was a little kid, just a little kid. I think it's a fun movie, and I like it.
It is a fun movie. It was my number 4 pick, but my number 5 pick is gonna get trumped. My number 5 pick is Fences, so I have a feeling that one gets trumped. So, but
sorry,
it's a fun one. I do love. It's a lean little thriller.
Yeah, it is.
Like
Lean is a great word for it. It's really tight. It's really well told. It's just a fun little movie. And if you haven't seen Disturbia, that is definitely recommend. All right, we'll continue through our 4s. Andrew, what's your number 4?
I am gonna go with Traffic.
I had that in honorable mentions. Almost made my list.
Mm-hmm. I'm just talking about. We're just talking about all the movies we talked about last week, really.
I know. We did Soderbergh movies last week and Viola Davis movies this week, and you realize, like, Soderbergh loved Viola Davis. Like, he had her in, like, all his early movies. In fact, her early career is pretty much Soderbergh movies. Like, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So I'm just going to echo everything I said last week about Traffic and how, out of all of Soderbergh's movies, I think it's the most visceral and gritty, disturbing look at the narcotics, I guess you could say, pandemic or epidemic that's going on, and like how that whole system works. It's fascinating, but it's also horrifying to watch. Kind of like how Sicario, hits you. This is more grounded in a more personal, like how it affects people, as opposed to how the government is, trying to take on cartels and stuff like that. But I think Traffic's a great movie. Good Benicio del Toro and Michael Douglas performance.
Very nice. My number 4 this is where I have Widows. Not sure if I'll get trumped on that one, but Widows has kind of flown under people's radar a little bit. I don't know how it got lost, but it's a pretty impressive film, and McQueen is doing some really interesting things in it, and I really enjoy it. So it ended up at number 4 on my list. So did you guys ever check out Widows? Get a chance to?
Yeah, I like it.
I haven't seen it yet. I love Steve McQueen, and I just had not gotten around to it. And then, I don't know, just for some reason, it didn't jump out to me as much as his other films. Like, it felt like he was, I can tell this is, like, probably one of his more accessible films. And, like, so, like, because I'm drawn to his, like, his artsy fartsiness. So,
Well,
I don't know, but I still want to check it out, though.
Oh,
you
man.
You can't take that out of him.
Okay, cool.
He has moments in this movie where he uses the camera in ways I've never seen it used before, and
good to know.
Yeah, in fact, I won't even spoil it for you. I was going to tell you the one that comes to mind, but it's on a car ride, and it not only is impressive from I see what you're doing with the camera and how cool that is, but also in the it also means something to the storytelling, which is another thing I love about McQueen is he does things intentionally. It's not just because this would be cool, it's because I'm showing something here, and so yeah, I really enjoy Widows.
Yeah.
So that's my number 4. On to our number 3s.
Yep.
Yeah.
Andrew, why don't you kick us off?
First off, I just realized that I skipped a movie. I actually skipped my number 5, so push up my 5 and 4 to 4 and 3. But I'll just go ahead. But I'll go ahead and
I'm confused, but go ahead.
I forgot to say my number 5, and I skipped immediately to 4 and made that my 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just don't remember what they were, but go ahead.
Okay.
Give us your 5 through 3, and we'll catch up with you.
So my 5 is Doubt.
Okay, I would have trumped that anyway. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then so 4 is Out of Sight, and then number 3 was Traffic.
Got it.
And we talked about 3. So that was my number 3, Traffic. So now moving on to
my number 3?
Yeah.
Which is Doubt.
Look at that.
Out? How fun
Nice.
is that? Man, what a movie.
Yeah.
This is an absolutely incredible film. You can anytime you've got Philip, Seymour Hoffman, Meryl Streep, and Amy Adams on the cover, you're at least in for the possibility of amazingness. So yeah, it's good stuff, and Viola's performance in it lives up to those other 3, which is, that foursome in this movie is just astonishing. So it's good stuff.
I don't know how I didn't know of the existence of this movie. I haven't seen it, but this all sounds amazing. These are some interesting flavors. I want to see how they blend together.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a duel of like who can outact who.
Well, that makes it sound cheap a little bit. That almost cheapens it, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
But whenever you look at what I'm saying is whenever you see Philip Seymour Hoffman pleading his case as opposed to Meryl Streep's accusations, it works well enough to where by the end of the movie, it lives up to the title, and you just don't really know.
It's a thinker. It's one of those that you come out of going, I'm not sure what I would do, how I would react. I love these kind of movies. There's a lot of moral, ethical questions in it. There's a lot of spiritual, explorations in it. The idea of religion and how that impacts, how we think about things. Like it checks a lot of my boxes that I'm just like, these are the kind of movies I love. So yeah, Doubt is definitely one of my favorite movies ever, and that's why it's at number 3 on my list.
Yeah.
So in fact, my top 3 are all on my best movies of all time. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
I think just my number 1, and you know what that is.
And I'm sure I do. I think
I'm on my number 3.
Your number 3, yeah.
My number 3 would be The Help. I don't know if that's going to.
It was my first honorable mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't revisited in a while, but The Help, I do remember just enjoying the performances. I know some people have kind of looked back on it, and like some people like look at it as like kind of shallow now. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of weird, but
it's
I
got
feel
some white savior accusations, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
but I still do just I love the tone of it, because it's something that it's a film that could be a lot more dour than it is, just because of the subject matter. I think it struck a really interesting tone with and using the interesting mix of character actors that they have between Viola Davis, Octavia Spencer, and Emma Stone, and the
Bryce
way that
Dallas Howard.
they brought. I couldn't remember if it was Jessica Chastain or Bryce Dallas Howard, so I just wasn't
They're
gonna
both
say.
in this. They're both in this.
Oh, they're both in it. That's why I was like, which
Yeah.
one of them is it? But it's both. There we go. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good film though.
It is,
Yeah.
and it's the movie that made me second guess pies for a little bit. So
Yeah.
Top Chef latrine.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, there's some heavy hitting emotional, especially the last scene with Bryce Dallas Howard and Viola Davis. That's a hard hitting scene, and I think that's for me the first time I really took a serious look. I know it sounds awful, but it's the first time I took a real serious look at Viola Davis, and like, okay, you got some acting chops, and you're one that I am definitely gonna be looking out for moving forward. Obviously, I'd seen her in other stuff before, but that was the one that I'm like, you got something.
Yeah. All right, on to our number twos.
Yep.
I think Andrew, you'll kick us off. What's your number two?
Hello, Mr. August Wilson. Good to see you again. Talking about fences.
Nice.
And this movie, yes, Viola Davis is brilliant in this, and she deserves all the accolades that she ever got. But honestly, I firmly believe this is Denzel Washington's best performance of his entire career. And it's funny because after watching before watching the James Earl Jones portrayal of this character, and I saw the trailer for this, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, Denzel Washington, he's good, but I don't know if anybody can really live up to Darth Vader. I mean, he really just knocked it out of the park. James Earl Jones did. A part of that is his voice is obviously so powerful, and it really sells whenever he's talking down to his son. That he just has a presence to him that I didn't know if Denzel Washington could compete with. Not only does he compete with James Earl Jones, I think that he delivers a performance that exceeds and is just otherworldly incredible in this. That I'm like, okay, yeah, you just outdid James Earl Jones, and like kind of like with Ma Rainey, it is a movie that doesn't hide the fact that it's based on a play. You definitely feel the fact that this is a play.
Yeah.
That doesn't really bother me as much. Whenever I see that happen, I just think it's just another avenue to tell a story. I don't think that, and I'm Devon, I'm not saying that this is what you were saying, but I don't look at it and like, oh, it's play. You can only see it as a play, or anything like that. I think that it's seeing things through or giving people the opportunity to see a story being told through other venues that they might not otherwise have been able to is something that I really want to see championed more. But getting back to this, I think that it's a great story with powerful, visuals and character arcs. I think it's brilliant.
Devon, you want to talk about Fences a little bit?
Yeah, I did want to chime in that it was like, this is like, Fences is an example of like it in a way that it works, that like it definitely felt that it had a reason to be cinematic, because it just felt like it was a blending of taking a stage play and then like that slice of life kind of genre, where you're just like kind of presenting these people and their life, and like and like the monologues are feel a little bit more natural because they're more conversational, versus in Ma Rainey they're a little bit all more bigger and showier.
Mm-hmm.
Versus this one has the showier ones, but it builds there because it builds as a like cinematic experience, as a movie builds. So Fences is definitely on the aspect where it definitely works. And then you just also insert like, these powerhouse actors in Denzel and Viola Davis. And they just, let them swing for the fences.
Hey!
and it definitely works out. It's a powerful film. It's not a film that I like find myself rewatching or anything. Like I think I've only seen it twice, but like it's like ultra powerful and definitely works in a cinematic fashion.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. Great performances, especially from the key two, Denzel and Viola, are absolutely astonishing in it. All right, on to my number.
Your number 2.
My number 2 is Ocean's 11, which you may not have on your list.
I didn't know she was in it.
You may not even know that she's in it. But guess who makes an uncredited appearance in Ocean's 11 because Soderbergh loves her so much? Viola Davis. So yeah, I went ahead and put it on my list because I'm just that guy.
Well, hey,
sneaky.
knock out, take out of sight, and replace it with Ocean's 11 on my list. Then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so where are we
Not
at
for
now?
you though.
Are we ready for our number ones, or do we do Devon's?
I think
number
Devon
two?
had his number 2.
All right, what's your number 2, Devon?
My number 2 is a film called It's Kind of a Funny Story. It's a smaller film that came out in 2010. It has Emma Roberts, Zach Galifianakis is in it, and she plays a doctor to this ward of teenagers that have like committed suicide, or not committed, have attempted suicide, or have had other depressive thoughts, and like and not just teens, there's like teens, but then there's also other people too. But and it's just like the connection that this young teenage boy character makes with some of the different people in this hospital, and then the connection they makes with the doctor played by Viola Davis. And it's a very small movie, but it's a very she gives a very like tender, like that tender yet stern kind of relationship to her character with him. And it's really good, but it's also a really great movie. It's a cute little coming of age movie that also deals with like some like heavy themes and some like big thoughts. And it's great, like if you watch it, especially like if you are like a 16-year-old watching this movie, it's very good. But it's good for anybody to watch it. But it's a nice little indie flick. Broken Social Scene did the score for it. That's this like elusive indie super group. And it's a good movie. It's really funny, but it's also pretty heartwarming. Might make you cry a little bit. It's good stuff.
Nice.
It has a fascinating cast I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
Emma Roberts and Zach Galifianakis.
A young Zoe Kravitz is in there. Jim Gaffigan.
Yeah.
Has a really interesting cast.
It's Kind of a Funny Story is the name of the movie. All right, we are now on to our number ones. Andrew, what do you got?
Well, it's my 18th favorite movie of all time, so it's got to be number 1. I'm going to go with Prisoners.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, me too.
Hey! Number 1. Very nice.
Shocker.
It's one of the greatest movies of all time. So there you go. You guys have heard me shout out my love for this movie over and over again. I'm going to hand it over to Devon so he can, let people know why I'm right.
Man, like Prisoners is a lean, mean, gritty, just it's dirty. I love me a good neo-noir crime thriller, and our boy Denny V comes through. I mean, stat cast from like top to bottom, just great performances all over the board, and obviously it's like more led by Jake Gyllenhaal and
Hugh Jackman.
Blinking on it. Hugh Jackman. I kept wanting to call him Logan. I was like Logan, Logan, and I was like,
it's better than Jack Human.
Yeah.
But they're the leads here. But Viola Davis does bring another emotional supporting performance to the table. And she is absolutely fantastic. But I mean, man, this movie, Denny V, you got Roger Deakins doing the cinematography. I mean, the score, it's everything is just so great about this movie. Like in the look of it, the framing. I mean, there's just so much to break down. Like it's like it's an incredibly dense movie, but it doesn't feel like it when you're watching it though.
Yeah, I love the ability or the fact that this movie doesn't shy away from showing you how shock and trauma affects people differently, and how people immediately react to something drastic and terrible like this happening. You have Hugh Jackman, who gets violent and just going all out. You have, I forget who played Hugh Jackman's wife. I apologize, but you look at Viola Davis and she just kind of shuts down, or you look at Terrence Howard, who really just
regresses
a shock.
and
Yeah, he regresses and he doesn't know what to do. Yeah, sorry, it was a Maria Bello who loses it. She just goes, loopy with it, and you see how this tragedy affects everybody differently, and you're like, I could see that happening for every single one, or I could see me in each of their shoes. Like, I could see me going crazy like Hugh Jackman, or I could see me shutting down like Viola Davis, or losing it like Maria Bello. We haven't really talked about Paul Dano and how crazy good he is in this. We've talked about how good Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman are, but Paul Dano, if he isn't selling that performance like he is, you don't feel as conflicted as you do as to what's happening. That "Where's My Daughter" scene with the hammer is one of the most tense, like white knuckle inducing scenes of any movie I've seen ever. It really is.
I have to put this on my rewatch list. I really do. Maybe I wasn't in the right place for it the first time I saw it. I have come to fall in love, of course, with Denis Villeneuve and the stuff that he's done. And I think I just need to revisit this one. I have a feeling if I revisit it, I would come closer to how you guys feel about it. I remember thinking it was good. I just don't remember loving it the way you guys do. I like the actors. As you mentioned, Jack Human, Jill Jakenhall, and Dan Paulo. All those guys are really good. But yeah. Anyhow,
it's like the pig Latin prisoners.
I do need to rewatch that one.
I hope I hope our love for it, and especially my adamant love for it, isn't overselling and hyping. So when you do rewatch it, you're like, oh, it's not Citizen Kane.
No. I've seen it. I know what it is. Your hype's not going to change me. So yeah. What were you going to say, Devon?
Oh, I saw it kind of late to the game whenever it was already like pretty hyped up, but like this was like one of the instances like when a movie like fully delivered like on that hype for me. Like that when Jakey G is driving her to the hospital in the rain.
In the blood.
Oh, in the blood, in the rain, in the rain, in the blood, in the rain. There is both rain and blood in my number one as well. In fact, I, for the first time in Sif Pop history, in back-to-back weeks, have the exact same number one and number two. I don't know that will ever happen again, but I have Ocean's 11 at number two and Out of Sight at number one. Again, saw this, rewatched this for the first time in many, many years just a couple weeks ago, and absolutely floored me, blew me away. So if you want to know my thoughts, just rewind a week and you can hear my overpraise for this incredible movie. So you rewatched it again too, Andrew?
Yeah, I watched it when it first came out in, what was it, 98, something like that?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember, I think I said this last week too, that I just watched it, I'm like, man, these people are really beautiful. I didn't really care much about the story or anything. Having rewatched it, with my quote unquote critical eye, I really, really underestimated how good or how effective chemistry can really drive a love for a movie. the sexual chemistry between Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney is bar none the best out of any movie ever. But beyond that, the actual, and I also love a good heist movie. And I think that, funny enough, you look at like Ocean's 11, and you would probably get the impersonation that Soderbergh is like a heist guy because he did this, and then Logan Lucky, like, oh, he's just a heist guy. I think that the heist element of this movie is secondary, if not, is it tertiary? It comes third, tertiary to what is going on. You have the romance element, which I think comes first, and then the do our conflicting ideologies, or of how we go about life, can you still love and care for a person? I think that comes second, and then there's the heist. I think that, yeah. Also, we got to shout out Don Cheadle, who's pretty, not terrifying, but he's unsettling in this in a really good way.
Yeah, another Soderbergh staple. Cheadle was in a ton of Soderbergh's early stuff. So yeah, no, I'm glad you rewatched it. I would highly encourage anybody that hasn't seen it in a while, check it out again. It's such a great movie. Let's throw out some honorable mentions. Do you guys have any before I kind of run? I've got like 3 more to mention.
2. I got 2.
Yeah, go ahead and throw those out.
Law-abiding citizen.
Okay.
It's, I know what the movie's trying to do, and I think it succeeds in what it's trying to do. Having said that, it's an okay movie. It's unique. There's not really many movies out there like it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And also, talking about George Clooney, I'm going to throw out Syriana. I think the movie's overrated, but still good. A lot of people think this is like the second coming of movies, and I'm like, it's fine. It's good. I mean, George Clooney is for me, I think George Clooney is the only thing that really sells that movie on being as good as people think it is. Other than that, I think it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are my 2.
Did you have any honorable mentions, Devon?
No, I kind of realized going back through her filmography that I definitely had a few that I need to hit up. So my 5 were pretty much my ones for her.
Okay. Shout out to Night and Day, which is much better than you remember it being. Doesn't mean it's a great movie, but you might want to check it out. Ender's Game, which I have a soft place in my heart for. I kind of enjoyed that one. And then Solaris, which is another Soderbergh film. And really kind of the earliest in her career that I think you really get, aside from the other Soderbergh movies, I really think you get an idea of what she's capable of in Solaris. And, speaking of the sexual chemistry that you mentioned with Clooney, it's really Soderbergh trying to recapture that with Clooney and another actress, and it doesn't quite work. And there's a lot of things about Solaris that don't quite work. But it's enough of a thinker and enough of a performance vehicle that I would at least throw it out there as just kind of at least a mention. If you want to check out more from Viola, it's a great one, a great performance of hers in her earlier career. So Solaris is one you might want to check out. All right, on to our buried treasure. What's that one thing in any area of pop culture that you want to make sure people know about? Devon, as our guest, we'll let you go first. What do you got?
Since we were talking musicals today, and I was talking ones that I didn't really like, I wanted to share one that I recently watched that I fell in love with. Is an older movie. Mr. Brian De Palma has one of the most interesting filmographies of any director. Like, it just he's spanned so many things, and so many people had been telling me for a long time. They said, Devon, you really need to watch Phantom of the Paradise. You really need to watch Phantom of the Paradise. And I watched it. I don't know if you guys have watched it recently, but man, oh man. Oh, you haven't seen it at all?
I don't think I've ever seen it.
This is, super early, weird Brian De Palma. This came out in 1974. And it is not a full-on musical, but it's a pretty close to being one. It has lots of music in it. But it's basically Brian De Palma doing his interpretation of Faust,
Ooh.
with a musical edge to it. And I don't know how to say too much without ruining anything, but a guy is wronged by a notoriously powerful record producer. He is wronged, and then it becomes the Phantom of the Paradise, which is this large like opera hall where they do like musical variety performances of and stuff. And it has Jessica Harper is one of the main leads. This was before she was in Suspiria. It's super weird and bombastic, and like the look for our antagonist is like so weird and unique looking, and but it definitely has like a lot of big themes at play as far as like, the art, and like when it comes to artists and producer relationships, and the way that we have like form our associations with art, and dissociating them from the artist itself. I don't know. It's just a movie
Cool.
that you should go see. It's got like a lot of glam rock kind of type stuff is like kind of the main genre, but it bounces around musically. It kind of feels like a low budget old school Baz Luhrmann movie, but Brian De Palma made it. And it's
Nice.
super weird, great music, really great performances, and it's a thinker. Like it was a movie I watched, I like thought about it for like a week, because it's just like it's so like in the moment you're watching all the weirdness going on, like because it just gets
Yeah.
really crazy. But then afterwards, you're like, okay, now that I've digested all of that, there's a lot going on. And then, like, that's a great movie. Like, I love a movie that just, like, leaves me thinking. So I love
You
movies from the
sold me.
70s. I'm realizing I love movies from the 70s as I'm, like, trying to go back and
Nice.
watch older movies.
What was the name of it again?
Phantom of the Paradise.
Paradise.
Phantom of the Paradise. In case you want to check that one out. Andrew, what about you?
I am going to go with, it's not fully done yet, but I'm going to go with the series, like the final season for Attack on Titan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Uh, I always hear this in the conversation of, is this the greatest anime of all time? I wouldn't have it on my list or as the greatest. It's definitely in the top 5, though. I if somebody were to tell me that they think this is the greatest show of all time, I wouldn't argue with them. I'm like, yeah, that I get it. It's one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. It's unlike any other anime out there. It is very hard to watch, based on the actual like what goes on in the show. It's haunting and it's eerie, but the world building is fascinating. The characters are incredible.
Mm.
I think that honestly, if I was like listing like what I believe are the greatest episodes of any show ever, I think 2 of the episodes of Attack on Titan would be on that top 10 list,
Wow.
which is crazy to think about. But yeah, there's 2 episodes I would consider probably some of the greatest writing and performances of any show ever. So if you haven't seen Attack on Titan, again, content warning, it is very graphic and violent and disturbing. But if you are, I guess, desensitized to that, then it is one you have to check out.
Very interesting. We're going to run the gamut today. Devon's going with the De Palma musical. You're going with one of the greatest animes ever. And I'm going with a laid back Netflix documentary called My Octopus Teacher. This is one of those documentaries that you could read the description, you could hear somebody talk about it, and then you could be like, that doesn't sound like anything I would ever want to spend an hour of my life, let alone 90 minutes of my life watching. I am here to tell you that if you decide to watch it, I think you're going to come away from it really interested in this story of this man who decided he was going to go diving in the same spot every single day of his life. and he started to develop a relationship with an octopus. And it is one of the strangest, most interesting looks at the intelligence of other creatures and kind of how they live their life and how they learn and what they do. And I don't know if you've looked at, kind of some of the crazy videos of octopuses online about how they camouflage, incredible
Oh, they're
camouflage.
aliens. They're not from.
Yeah,
They're
yes.
They're the best
incredible
creatures ever.
So with all that in mind, it just makes this such an interesting look at the life of this octopus and the life of this man interacting with this octopus and what he learns from the octopus in his life. Again, I know it sounds like something you wouldn't want to invest in, but crank it up.
Hey, I've already watched Shape of Water. I'm ready to go down this road again.
This isn't much different. He kind of falls in love with this octopus.
It's pretty much the same.
Oh, Devon, have you seen it?
I have seen it. I did want to tag something onto it I watched it, and when I watched it, I loved it. I cried. I love octopi, and I think they're like the coolest creatures ever. However, so I watched it, and then I also watched this YouTube video essay about it afterwards. This person's interpretation of the documentary, and kind of telling you how the film is effective in falling into the trap of this guy, and she basically describes the movie also as like in a comedic form, like as a like romantic horror movie, and then. And it kind of recontextualizes like the reasoning for him making the documentary. But watch the documentary for the octopus stuff, because octopi are just they're so cool. Like they are. I believe cool, and it is touching.
I believe technically it's octopuses. I had to look this up for a script I wrote once.
Is it not octopi anymore?
No, everybody thinks because everything has to be Latin that it would be octopi, but apparently it's octopuses. So in case you ever wanted to know the plural. The octopi is, kind of a cousin of the pie in The Help. It's just a little bit different.
8 of them.
Octopi. Yeah, there's 8 of them, exactly. That's going to wrap it up for Sif Pop today. Sif Pop is part of the Studio DNA podcast network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today. Appreciate
Thank you,
man.
buddy.
Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing both the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
And Thank you to Drew for the art, for putting together some of the design of the show.
Golf clap.
And much thank yous to Devon for hanging out with us again. Devon Taylor, where do you want to send people to hear your stuff?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, guys. Glad, as always, to stop in on the show and bring a little different flavor than I usually do to these episodes today.
Right.
This was fun. We had some really productive conversations. I enjoyed that. You guys can find me. I host a horror podcast called the Blade Blunt Cinema Club. We talk about horror movies, but specifically digging into the subgenres of horror movies. So we kind of have a monthly theme, and then each episode we cover sometimes one movie, sometimes two. We've also done entire franchises. So I've gotten to talk to some directors about their films as well. So it's a good time. So make sure you guys check out my podcast. The Twitter page for that is @BloodyBluntCC. And then you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram @_DaddyDisco. I do photography and I write stuff for Nightmare on Film Street, and I do all sorts of other things, music things and video things. Yeah, I'm a busy guy. Check me out.
And that is what we do.
Nice.
Much love and gratitude to our Sif Pop members for giving monthly to make Sif Pop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month. You get some access to the bonus episodes as well as some other fun perks. You can find out more at patreon.com/SifPop. You can connect with the podcast by leaving a comment, rating it, or leaving a review at Apple Podcasts, or you can email us, feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too, so make sure you let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than getting Ma Rainey to do anything that Ma Rainey doesn't want to do. We will be back next week with another special guest in some more movies. And I believe we'll have Wonder Woman and Soul to talk about next week. Those both drop on Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And to our video audience, we love you. Thanks for hanging out and chatting. We do have to run, unfortunately. So we will catch you soon. Peace out, guys.
All right. Devon, thank you so much, bud.
Broadcast
problem.
is